Right. Because Verizon's on.
Now. Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Evansville Vanderburgh Public Library Board of Directors on January 12th. And as my first order of business, I'd like to welcome our newest board member, Joe Kiefer.
Thank you very much. Appreciate being here. Looking forward to working with you all. Thank you.
And as my next order of business, I would like to call for the election of officers and committee appointments for the ensuing year. The nominating committee presented a slate of officers to board members. Those officers are in the slate are President Eric Williams, Vice President Rick Cameron, Secretary Sabrina Stewart Thomas, and Treasurer Robert Musgrave. Do we have a motion for the acceptance of the slate as nominated by the nominating committee?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the slate of officers, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And motion carries. And with that, I will turn things over there. We do not have a gavel, so this is our imaginary gavel.
Hypothetical gavel.
I'm handing the gavel over to President Williams.
Thank you very much. First order of business is to thank you on behalf of the EVPL board, staff, and everybody, but in recognition of your service as the president of the board, thank you very much, and we appreciate it greatly.
Thank you. Thank you. I genuinely have enjoyed working as a board member and particularly as president. It's been this is something I'm very passionate about. And as an educator, obviously, I think libraries are extremely important. So I'm very passionate about it and really have enjoyed serving the past 2 years. Thank you.
Well, you did a great job and set the bar very high. Thank you very little. Thank you. Next item is the committee appointments. We generally have two committees that are standing and then we have ad hocs as needed. And the two that are standing would be building and grounds and finance. I would entertain, because I have no specific qualms on who would want to serve on those. I'd much rather have folks that want to be on those committees and serve in those capacities. So I would entertain any input from anybody that wanted to be on one or the other or both. Probably the only prerequisite is we usually have our treasurer serve on the finance committee. So Bob, you would be the single appointment that I would single out and say, I would like you to take care of the finance committee.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else? Or do you, and I don't think it has to happen today, other than building and grounds with some of the things that are going on. It would probably be helpful to have that one filled if we could. So any interest from anybody?
I currently on the Building and Grounds Committee and would certainly entertain continuing to do so.
Okay, Rick?
What are the other committees?
Well, it's finance and building and grounds.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah,
I think Joe, actually, with his background in real estate, would be a good addition to the
building and grounds. Joe, are you interested?
Yeah, I mean, I'll do my best. I don't know when the meetings are or anything like that, but you know, I'll do what I can.
3 times a week.
I'll see.
4:35, new person brings dinner.
And I'll serve on both. So we have for building and grounds, Rick, Joe, and myself, and for finance, Bob and myself for now, and we may add others as needed. One more.
I'll volunteer for finance.
Linda.
Happy to do that.
All right. We have a full slate of committees. Do we need approval for that, or is it just an appointment? Consider it done. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next item of business is forum for visitors. The EVPL welcomes members of the community to speak in front and tell us what's on their mind. We generally allow 15 minutes in all total to do that. So we have two, and I'll just call them in the order that I got it. So the first one is Jamie Dill. Welcome, Jamie. If you would, for the record, just introduce yourself and.
Okay, I'm Jamie Dill. I actually brought notes so I wouldn't take up most of any time, because I have a tendency to linger on things. But I'm here today because I want to compliment the EVPL. My family utilizes the library resources weekly. My son over here, he loves the library. It's one of the places he feels safe because there is some sensory issues that we deal with, and that is a place that he feels safe going to. And the librarians are amazing with him. So I just wanted to compliment that. We have utilized quite a few services at the EVPL. There several years ago, my family went through a tragedy. And one of the places I felt safe was going to the library and finding a quiet space to use some grief and bereavement books to read through. So we really do appreciate being able to have someplace safe to sit and have resources available for free. We've also utilized the baby and me classes, the story time. There was an egg hunt at the Red Bank branch that we went to. It was very popular, by the way, extremely popular activity. And then we've also been to the Balloon Fest as well. So we've not only utilized the materials, the books, the movies, but we also go to the activities. We have also utilized the meeting rooms. I have a nonprofit, so I've utilized the meeting rooms and the study rooms as well. So not only are they affecting my family positively, I'm hoping our nonprofit and using those meeting rooms also can help the community while we're doing planning. So I just thought I would stop by and tell everyone how grateful we are for the great programs, the resources, everything in the EVPL. It's a highlight for us every week to go. This afternoon, my son got 2 movies and 4 books, and we will be through those in no time. So we will be back again in the next few days to utilize more resources. But I thought I'd want to share how much we love everything that EVPL does for my family and the community. So
Thank you, Jamie. It's always nice to hear those stories. All right, the next person we had was Emily Wambach.
Thank you. I also brought notes for the same reason, or in case I panic. And I actually have similar things to say. Just wanted to come and talk about how important the library has been to my family. And I have 2 very young kids, 4 and 2.5. So when I think about the library, I could go on forever about all the amazing programs. But for us, since I've been back in Evansville, it's been mostly the programs and of course, checking out books. I actually am from Evansville, but moved to Indianapolis, got married, had kids, and then we moved back about 1.5 years ago. And in moving back, my main concern was, what is going to be available in Evansville versus Indy, and how might that impact my kids? And I have been so thrilled to discover the library programs because while I, am from Evansville, I never attended any of those programs when I wasn't a parent. And it's been so wonderful for my kids and really for me to find somewhere that we can go that I know is going to be fun and they're going to be getting a lot out of it. And it's creating those positive associations for them of being at a library and knowing that a library is a fun place and a place where you get books and where you can meet other cool people. And in looking for the programs, I really was, when I just looked at what's going on in Evansville now, a lot's changed since I've been back and what's going on with what parents are doing. I was really looking for a few things. I'm a stay-at-home parent. So I was really looking for socialization for me because I feel very fortunate to be able to do that, but it can get isolating if you don't have enough to do. I also really wanted socialization for my youngest, who was born in the spring of 2020, so didn't really go anywhere for the first year of his life. And I was also hoping to find places where I could include diversity for my kids. You know, living in Indy, it wasn't as difficult for my kids to see people and meet people who weren't exactly like us. And being in Evansville, 90% of my social calendar is socializing with my family. So if I don't make a little bit of effort, then I feel like it could be very easy to get trapped in a bubble. And suddenly I'm like, oh, my kids don't realize that not every family is exactly like our family. And so I've really been impressed with how many of those boxes, the programs at the libraries check. We've been to at least one program at every library. We like to mix it up. And I've never had a bad experience. It's always been great, but we do have some favorites. But they've all been wonderful. And especially for my son, when I think about the first program he went to, when he literally ran to the doors and was saying, go, go, go. And to now when I had to take him out of the East Branch library kicking and screaming because he wasn't ready to leave and we had to go. So that's progress, a lot of progress. And I just feel like, you know, I'm in a fortunate position. I have a very supportive family. My husband and I have a strong social network of people that are supportive, but I know that not every parent has that. A lot of parents don't have that. And so I think for those parents, especially if I appreciate it this much, I can only imagine how important it is for parents who may not have those supports to have somewhere to go that is a safe, welcoming place where a librarian who sees kids every day, works with kids, tells them you're doing a great job, or parenting's really tough sometimes, isn't it? Or, oh my gosh, look how much he's learned since the last time he was here. I think that that can really, for so many people, be the difference between thinking this is so hard and I'm failing at it versus this is really hard and I've got this. And I want to give a special shout out to Miss Joanne Hunter at the East Branch, because that's the program we go to without fail every week, unless we're sick or busy. But we're never too busy for that one. We love it. My kids love it. And I feel like all the programs are so great, but that one in particular really there's just a sense of community that you can feel, whether it's the first time you've gone there or the 50th time. And it's, you know, the programs are great. The activities and stories are great, but it's so much more than that. It's really about just that sense of belonging and that sense of no matter who you are, if you're here to read some books and hang out and be a parent and just let your kid run around and explore, then we're here for you. So we just really love that. And it just, to me, really shows how wonderful all the EVPL programs are. And I'm looking forward to, as my kids grow, I find programs every day that I think, I really want to go to that, but they're not old enough yet. So looking forward to discovering even more as they grow. And I'm just so thankful that our community has this resource. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. To both of you, neither one of you leaned on your notes at all, so that made those messages even more compelling. Thank you. All right, I circulated correspondence, so for the board, there's one letter in there. Next item is the consent agenda, which includes our meetings from the minutes from the December meeting, personnel matters, director's report, and monthly public service statistics. I'd entertain a motion if there is one. A motion in a second. Is there any discussion?
I do have a question about the director's report. There's some information in there about evaluating the collection size at McCullough and establishing rules for other regional locations. And I was gonna ask if Scott could just give us a brief, account of what that looks like and what factors into those considerations.
Sure. And I'm gonna have Heather jump in if I miss something. We just had the McCullough team meet this afternoon to talk about some of the spatial planning. Basically, what happened is our architect of record, MKM, asked us to come up with some guidelines of collection size, whether it needed to be increased, decreased, for floor plate for what they are doing in consultation with them of some of the tentative plans that we have for the McCullough branch, so they can get working on their conceptual design drawings. And basically they want to know, is there a collection within that building that is going to grow or shrink or of that nature? And so we met with the team, brought in our collection development department and our cataloging manager as part of this team on this particular item, and had probably a good hour discussion on how we were going to go with this collection and what's our first recommendation going to be to Zach and the MKM team to get them started. And what we really decided was, we know that the Juvenile collection, the kids collection is undersized and we'd like to increase that. The teen collection for that particular location, we wanted to decrease slightly. And we know just out of what's happening in the world today with technology that our audio visual collection are going to be downsizing, and mainly that's because of the book on CDs, but in some cases it's also DVD and Blu-ray because of streaming services. So we looked at what that would affect the floor plate of the buildings as well. And we also looked at nonfiction and how that would interact with that space as well, and whether that needed to decrease. So right now, tentatively, working with Zach to get them started with their design drawings, I believe we slightly decreased the collection size, mainly due to the AV and collections, and reduced by, was it like 3%?
Well, we're starting at a 4% overall. However, within that decrease, it's increasing in certain areas. So
Areas,
it's
correct.
it's
It's
tricky to
adjusted.
look at it. But we really looked heavily into our circulation statistics, both at McCullough and what works well, but also as their percentage of the whole. And it was great to really deep dive into those statistics. It told us a lot about how our patrons use our materials
Mhm.
and how they want to continue to use our materials. And while we do circulate materials from location to location through our courier service daily, the majority of our circulation is by people walking into the location that they visit, where they live, and checking out a book from their home location, which was really, really important information for us to have. 92% of our circulation is through people browsing our collection, and 8% comes from holds. So knowing that, we didn't want to lose much collection, but we knew we needed to make a little bit more square footage available for study rooms, those small group rooms. We see the usage of our meeting rooms. We always need them. We always need meeting rooms, and especially smaller rooms. Our big ones go very well, but we could use some 3 to 5 person rooms. So we consulted with Zach, and this is a starting point. It is by no means, I'm throwing out numbers here, it may not be where we land. It just was to give them a starting point.
Right.
To look at what they can do, and then we'll see some designs. We'll come back and see what can fit in the space when we move things around. But we were looking at it as if we were going to build every neighbor or regional location similar to this, what do we think that collection size should be? Which we have some that are undersized,
Mhm.
if we really wanted to kind of equitably distribute our collection across the county.
Right.
So it was an hour and 20 minutes, actually, our meeting was, lots of numbers, lots of figuring. But I think we all came away pretty happy with the starting point, and Zach felt it was a good place to start as well.
And I want to commend Heather, Andrea, and Connie, who got all those statistics together, and we're number crunching those and doing the preliminary work for this committee, because it's a daunting task, having gone through this before at other libraries that I've worked at. And they did a bang up job, and it's really tough trying to figure this stuff out and getting that first initial starting point.
I just wanted to comment on the monthly public service statistics as well, which kind of ties into what you're saying. I know it's labeled as monthly, but I appreciate the fact that this month's actually contains our year-end data. And the fact that we're utilizing data to drive decisions and really considering that data. And as a board member, I really appreciate having that on a monthly basis and being able to look at some of those statistics. So
I'm just gonna tag on and commend Nancy Higgs, our public services manager. Nancy, wave your hands. Nancy undertook changing our public service statistics in the way that our staff report them, both from an ease of use on their end, but also an ease of use on our end to quickly turn around our statistics. And never before, I've been here almost 10 years, we have never had annual statistics this quickly in the entire time that I've been here. She did a phenomenal job. She worked with IT to come up with a form that could easily turn around, and it's been a huge help. So, thanks, Nancy.
Yeah, they're excellent. It's good to give you a barometer of what's going on in the system. One question with like McCullough, as we talk about building the library,
Mhm.
you know, you look at it's the second highest traffic location, and
Mhm.
if selection of books is based on those that are browsing it, and you mentioned teen and juvenile,
Mhm.
So how do we break that down when we look at our traffic patterns inside of a inside of a library? Inside of a library to know that that's where we need to be focusing our attention versus, I would assume McCullough probably has a pretty high people in my age bracket,
We're correct. Yeah.
and servicing in Joe's bracket. Providing services for people in my age group.
Yeah, and librarians
gotcha.
are really good about counting everything and keeping statistics. That's what we do. We're information professionals. So we count everything. Our integrated library system, which last month you just allowed us to upgrade and update, which is going to get us better reporting. We can tell what types of our collections, from nonfiction to fiction to mystery to sci-fi, what is circulating at what age demographic of card use. We also use another product called Savannah that tells us which zip code is using that. We literally track data as much as we can so we can make those informed decisions and get information to the board so you can make informed decisions. So we do it not only by entrance count. Entrance count is interesting because we actually use our security cameras and a piece of software that counts people coming in. It doesn't take pictures of them or anything, but it registers when you come in the door. And so it's better and more accurate than those infrared when you come in the door, because so that's one reason why sometimes our interest counts look a little lower, because we're actually more accurate in how we're counting. And that's been a trend across libraries across the country. Heather pulled a bunch of data as well, comparing us to our peer libraries. I pulled some other additional national peer data libraries, and you can see the trend going back of how circulation, interest count statistics have changed all across the country and mirror the same up and down swings and to where we are now, just because of using technology to better our statistic gathering.
However, I'm going to tag on to that just to be very clear that we can track in circulation by where people live, what their zip code is, what demographics, and what types of materials they're checking out. But when you come through the doors, we do not track demographics that way.
No.
That is a privacy, and that's our privacy policy. So technically, I can't tell you that more adults use McCullough than teens because we don't track it that
We can't,
way.
right?
But I can tell you based on circulation statistics, and our staff can tell you qualitatively stories about how many teens
Correct.
they may be helping on the computers, things like that. But for privacy purposes,
Right.
obviously, we keep all of that relatively
Yeah,
anonymous.
I
And
apologize
even-
if I implied
yeah.
that, but yeah.
You didn't imply it. I just want to be
Okay.
very clear, especially since we have a new board member here.
Yes.
It's not like we are tracking who walks through the door to know at any given time who is in the building and how many adults versus how many kids
Right.
we have.
Because
No,
as
right.
information professionals, that's our other thing that we
So
do
you
is
can't-
patron privacy is our
You
number one
can't,
concern.
segregate and say that this is just a demographic number, not necessarily.
Not based
mean-
on who walks through the doors, but when people are using our circulation, so the circulation of the collections, I can definitely tell you X% of our overall circulation. I can tell you right now, 3.7% of our overall collection circulation for last year came from Oakland's juvenile collection. 3.7% across the entire county came from Oakland's juvenile. What does that tell you right there? A ton of families go in there. You can look at our program statistics and you can see a ton of families use our program statistics.
Right.
So when you put the pieces and parts together and our qualitative, you can go walk in
Right.
there any day and see
Right.
a ton of families use Oakland versus if you go to McCullough and watch on a normal day, you are going to see more adults than families. That hopefully will shift when we do the renovation at McCullough and renovate that space and have a new vibrant McCullough Children's Center. That's one of the purposes.
Okay.
To Belinda's point, making decisions via data as
Mhm.
opposed to totally subjectively, that's appreciated. Before I ask my one question, any other questions? So on the personnel report, there are 14 open positions. Is
Mhm.
that high for,
Well,
Somewhat.
we don't hire at the end of the year.
Right. We don't
And-
hire over the holidays.
Yes, so anything that may have actually come up and opened during December, wouldn't have been hired during December. So you're always gonna see an influx in January once we start hiring again. So anybody that left toward the end of the year, we don't fill that position until the next year.
So, a suggestion for this report is if on each
Make a
one of
note.
these you'd open since.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
how long it's been aging,
Okay.
just so
Got
that,
it.
so you can tell how long you've been looking for a
Mr.
spot.
President. Just because of my ignorance and not been here long enough, I don't understand what is a grade 11 position, a higher paid position than say a grade 3, or how's that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Higher the grade, higher the
Yeah.
pay on our grading scale currently.
And I think, Joe, and I think as part of your orientation, you're
We'll
gonna
show
get
them all that,
Okay.
yes.
a grid that explains the grading system and the.
Okay,
And also of note, we are in the process right now of doing a salary survey. we're using a consultant to look nationally and Midwest to check where our pay grades are in our salary ranges, to see if they need to be updated based on different.
What's the ETA on that?
So we finalized role descriptions to the point that they could be turned over for the salary survey right before the holidays in the middle of December. So NFP, who is the salary survey, started their process just this week. Really, we were finalizing some pieces with them, switched a few things around, and we have 50 positions that they are looking at to benchmark and create that new salary structure. So we had hoped, I think by March, April. Yeah,
So
so
Heather,
that we would have that information to budget for 2024 when we come together in May and June.
do you assume or are you getting a good pool of candidates to apply for these positions? You know?
Some yes, and some no. And it is not surprising which ones don't,
No,
because they're the
no,
ones
no,
that we
not at all.
know are underpaid, quite
Uh-huh.
frankly. So the ones that we know we will see probably an increase with our salary survey is where we have a hard time getting people. Anything that says custodian on here is gonna take us a while, just
Yeah.
guaranteed, because we do
Okay.
not pay as well as everybody else. Our security officers right now do not get paid as well as other people. Some of our, we don't have a facilitator right now. But that's one as well. Our librarians are actually getting a lot of good traffic right now, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're doing well.
Our master's level positions.
okay.
Mhm.
We do have a facilitator. I'm sorry, I do see that. That is an underpaid position.
Yeah.
For a certification, it has to be certified with the
Makes,
state.
makes sense.
Mhm.
When I looked at it, it just seemed like it was a lot of open positions. But based on how society is right now, I really wasn't necessarily surprised.
Mhm.
I just wanted to know what was the process that we were going through to try to fill some of those
Yeah.
positions. And of course, the higher paid positions are going to fill hopefully quicker than those that are not.
We can also easily provide notes on where we are in the process, because I can guarantee you right now, in a month, you're gonna see all these librarian positions still on there, because that process takes us more than a month.
Correct.
We have interviews scheduled, but they're first round interviews. We do first round of Zoom for our master's degree librarians, usually a second round as well. This takes time.
Mhm.
It takes over a month to get that done. And it doesn't get closed out until an offer and references, and you know how that goes. So
Yeah.
we can keep some of those notes though about where we are in the process.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions about the consent agenda? Hearing none, there's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, governance. Looks like most of this is Lori's.
Mhm.
It is. So before we get into the resolution to transfer operating funds to the rainy day funds, I wanted to go through our year-end finance, our library operating fund budget status and where we came out at the end. So you'll see under governance in your packet, there is a sheet that shows both our revenue and our expenditures for the year. And our taxes that came in, our tax settlement that came in the month of December was actually showed the brunt of our circuit breaker tax cap credits reductions. And so overall for the year, we collected 80% of what we were certified at the beginning of the year. So 20% of our property taxes were reduced by the circuit breakers in 2022. And it just creeps up higher and higher each year that since they've passed the tax cap laws in 2012. So since 2013, it's increased 1 to 2% almost every single year. So we're up to 20% at the time being. You can see that we did in a couple of areas, we did receive a little bit more than what was estimated during the certification process by the DLGF at the beginning of 2022. And that included the commercial vehicle excise tax or the CVET tax that you see on there. And then also we base our miscellaneous income based from year to year, and with the pandemic, it's a little hard to base it. Especially if you look down at the interest income from investments, it tanked in 2021, as you know. In 2022, after the first portion of the year, our investments within Trust Indiana actually started growing quite a bit. So what we projected for income and investments in 2022 of $5,000, we exceeded by 1,592%, because we collected just in our operating fund $79,000 in interest from Trust Indiana in 2022. So the rest of the income is pretty much on target. You'll notice that we don't have certification for every single line item, because not every single line item is counted towards miscellaneous income with the DLGF. And or where you see the asterisks, we do lump together certain ones under just miscellaneous fees and services. We did receive a supplemental local income tax in the spring, so that's why our local income tax shows a surplus in 2022 from what we were certified. I'm going to skip down to the very bottom of our expenditures, because we go through our expenditures regularly at least the major categories each month in our appropriations. And for the year, we ended up with a 12% operating budget balance. Now, if you start to look up through individual line items, you'll notice that there aren't a lot of large balances in any one particular category. And the few that we do have percentage balances of, it's still not a large dollar amount. The majority of our surplus, or I'm sorry, unexpended expenditures in 2022 were actually in personnel and benefits. So you can see on that first page about in the middle that we still had 14% of salaries unexpended in 2022. And then based on those salaries that we budget for Social Security and Medicare, we were under 16%. So those are all based on vacancies, how quickly we can fill them, if the position is repurposed for another area, and things of that nature. So that's why we typically have a little bit extra in those areas under expenditures. At the very, very bottom, you'll see that we had a cash increase in 2022 of all revenue to expenditures of $836,000. And towards the middle portion at the bottom, you'll see that the budget balance of $1,849,399 is eligible for a transfer to the rainy day fund. We are eligible by law to transfer up to 10% of unused, unencumbered budget balances. And that 10% equates to $1,508,914. So if we take our balance minus our encumbrances that we're carrying forward into 2023, which you approved last month, and then the proposal that I'll get to here in a moment of $750,000 transfer to rainy day, we would still have $981,000 in the budget that was unexpended or transferred. And based on the cash amount, we would still have over $86,000 surplus.
86,000.
Yes, it's at the very bottom of this page. So with that in mind, I would propose that the board consider a transfer of $750,000 as proposed in the resolution in your packet, from the operating fund to the rainy day fund. And this is the same amount that was transferred last year from 21 to 22.
I have a question. what happens if you don't transfer the money? Where does it go?
It still sets in our operating cash balance.
Just stays in the operating cash balance?
Mhm.
And
You can't spend it.
does the rainy day fund earn more interest rate? Is it some kind of,
No, it's the same.
it's the same? So
Yeah,
there's
we
it's not
invest-
a different type of investment vehicle that,
We used the
okay,
Separate from operating.
okay,
State Investment Pool Trust Indiana for all of our investments.
okay.
How much would be in rainy day funds after the transfer were made?
So the current rainy day fund investment balance is 3,349,000. So add 750,000 to that.
4.1 million.
Yeah.
You got recall, there's a second account that money can be set aside in. There's a rainy day fund and
No, by law, we can only move it to rainy day.
just rainy days, all there is.
Mhm. And we can't spend it unless we budget it.
Right.
Any additional questions for Lori?
If we've had 2 years in a row in which the money we've brought in is at least $750,000 more than the money we expended, why do we not lower our budget?
Well, we budget based on, again, that's why I went through the lines. You're looking at the majority of this money is coming from the personnel and benefits lines.
Mhm.
And those are budgeted based on the employees that we have and the vacancies that we're filling at that time.
But apparently we never have 100% full, so we just say we are gonna budget based on 95% being filled.
For 2022, I can't say that for years preceding 2022.
Yeah.
That was just for 2022.
It's not always from that budget line where we hadn't spent it.
But $750,000 over 2 years in a row is a lot of money. I just whether we're over budgeting and then taking the money and putting it aside rather than leaving the money for other people to use.
We do look at those numbers in the personnel when we budget for the next cycle. But as you know, we budget so far in advance, so now we have the numbers that we can look at for 2024. But we use the 2021 when we adjusted the personnel budget and where those dollars can come from. Additionally, I don't want to say promise you, because I can't make a promise. But in 2024, when we get the salary survey back, we're gonna need those dollars to right size and correctly pay and adequately pay people. But correct, but my bet would be that in 2024, that we're gonna be telling a different story with our budget. Just because to implement the changes that we will likely see in a salary survey, this won't be an issue.
Yes. And the money in the rainy day fund can be reallocated in the budget to salaries or to other items also.
So I don't believe we can use rainy day funds to cover salaries. I have to look at the resolution that this board passed.
But you could use it for other expenditures.
And readjust those
free up
line
other
items.
Which
dollars.
we have done for years, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So really, when I came in 2011, we didn't budget out of the rainy day. It was a much lower balance, cash investment balance. We didn't budget out of there because we didn't have to. 2 years later, when we had a 7% decrease in assessed values in Vanderburgh County, and the circuit breaker tax credit tax caps took effect, we were short dollars. In fact, our reserves went down to basically nothing. We were operating on a 5-month reserve for 6 months. And so what we did was we cut back on our expenditures that year so that we could, in 2013, so that we could ensure in 2014 that we wouldn't be running short and have to borrow from rainy day until we got our tax settlement and then put the money back into rainy day. So for a couple of years in a row, we didn't transfer any money into rainy day. But what we started doing was budgeting rainy day so we could use it as an alternate funding source for unexpected HVAC problems. Yes, for rainy day items.
Correct.
And some of the things that we would like to have planned to make sure the operations of our facilities could be maintained. We started taking from rainy day versus our operating fund. So that amount is not that $750,000 is not a guarantee, and that's the most we've ever, other than last year, the most we've ever put into a rainy day in a given year.
And some of this is pandemic driven too, just because that's what has stopped us from hiring personnel that we need to. And as Heather said earlier, it's hard for us to hire middle of the year just because librarian candidates for the positions that we have open are professional positions, usually graduate in the spring. And those are our entry level positions. And so it's hard to find someone who wants to move in the middle of winter. And so usually we have even a better pool in the spring. And there hasn't been a lot of, I guess, migration in our field for library professionals moving across the country.
We've had administrative changes,
As
and a
well.
lot of our administrative salaries are obviously higher salaries.
Right.
When Charles left, that has left a gap. We have not filled that role because we're going to change it and shift it in the
Right.
future. But we didn't want to change that or shift some of that until we do the role description project and our salary survey. Same thing with our marketing manager. That's a position we wanted to redo the role description, make sure that we have that
Correct.
correct before we do the salary survey. So you have a position open because we're making sure that we right size our organization and get the organizational structure correct before we bring people in so we can hire the right candidates.
We've also had several long-term employees retire. And
Yes.
so when we have backfilled
Yes.
them, it's been at a lower rate
Yep.
because they were maxed out at their step and grade
Yes.
scale.
So we budgeted at a higher rate than when we hire someone and we were left with excess. And security,
And security,
in our security.
and our security.
Yeah.
policy.
I can guarantee that was a large part of that,
Mhm.
just because I.
There are no other questions, then, by resolution, I propose that the Board of Trustees of Vanderburgh Evansville Public Library finds that the purposes of the library operating fund have been fulfilled, and whereas there's remaining in the operating fund an unused and unencumbered balance, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Evansville Vanderburgh Public Library does hereby transfer $750,000 from the operating fund to the rainy day fund. This fund shall be subject to the same appropriation process as other funds that receive tax money. Appropriated this 12th day, or I'm sorry, adopted this 12th day, January 2023.
I just have one last question, because please excuse my ignorance on this. If it stays in the operating fund, is that what that's called, the operating fund? Does that somehow reduce the tax rate or anything? I mean, what's it do? I mean, what's the difference? If there's no more money to be had by interest or earnings, why
Well,
is
it would still continue to earn interest because it's sitting in our investment fund.
I guess my confusion is, what's the difference if you leave it in? Why does it have to be moved in? Yeah, why transfer it if it's no difference?
So when we budget every year, our budget and our for our library operating fund is based on the line items that you'll see that makes up our budget. We can never reuse that previous money to cover those particular items. Or if we put it into rainy day fund, we can budget, as long as we stay under the maximum growth quotient, we can budget those dollars out and spend it out of rainy day.
It would be an additional appropriations to spend it out of our operating fund.
Yeah.
So we would have to go through the same process that we go through when we just went through the bond with the city council. So let's say we wanted to spend $750,000 and leave it in our operating. We have to go through the additional appropriations process in front of you, in front of the city council, to be able to spend that money. If we put it in on a rainy day fund right now, then in June, when we're budgeting for 2024, we have $750,000 more in our rainy day fund that we can budget to spend out of that fund automatically without going through all those different hoops. Does that sort of make sense?
Kinda. So is there a limit on what you can put in the rainy day fund?
Yes.
10%?
Yes.
No more than 10% of the unused unencumbered budget, operating budget.
Okay. I guess my fear is that transferring it then allows somehow to just collect more from in property taxes the following year. No.
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 Mhm.
Okay.
So take the money out of rainy day fund, it would require what?
A budget.
And budget.
By the budget
That's
passed by the board.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So the board would take it out without oversight from city council, whereas it's left and operate has to go. to city
As long as
council.
we stay, when we're doing our budgeting and we're doing our tax levying, as long as we stay under the maximum growth quotient. Set by the state.
We do.
So basically, what we're saying is the transfer provides more flexibility.
Correct.
Correct.
I'm a simplistic person. That's exactly what it is.
But not immediate
Right,
use.
correct.
And this vehicle has been established by the, and I never get the initial.
DLGF.
Thank you,
DLGF.
DLGF. So it's not as if this is something we have come up with. This
No.
is a standard practice. And I know,
Actually, it's State Board of Accounts for
State
this
Board of Accounts.
particular.
Yes.
Mhm.
because I know school corporations have similar rules
Correct.
around the same process.
Similar but different, yes.
All libraries operate in this way that have large enough money budgets to carry money over into the rainy day fund.
Is there a dollar amount that? So it'd be exceeding 4 million then total rainy day fund,
4.1 million in that.
4.1, is there? If this happens again next year, is there a dollar amount where you say, okay, carrying 5 million in rainy day fund might be too much, or? Or do you just want to keep growing it till it gets to?
No, we will be defining projects that we will want to use to budget to come before the board when rainy day gets that large.
I would interject too, that we're making the motion.
Yeah.
We're gonna pass this, so I think if it reached a threshold, we no longer had viable, make sense projects on the plate. And we were uncomfortable, or our appointing authorities were uncomfortable with the level at which that rainy day fund had reached, we would not approve to do this.
Okay,
Right.
okay. No, I'm just asking questions.
Yeah.
I just trying to understand.
Great question.
Yeah, they're great
Yeah,
questions.
Because it is kind of a specialty area.
Yeah.
That we have, at least Lori, who's, I consider to be an expert in how those rules and regulations work. But it is, the idea of having dollars sit in an operating fund and they're just, what do you do with them? And I think that makes a lot of sense to ask that question.
okay.
But there are standards that.
Yeah.
You don't go too high, and it goes back historically. Actually, it's only been probably 10 or 12 years ago that the state established them, because some public libraries, not EVPL, were sitting on large amounts of money and never spending them. That has never been a problem at EVPL, but the state did change
Right.
the ways that some of this has to be done and some of the legislation around that, so that we cannot actually sit on a pile of money without spending
I'm
it.
just not used to having that kind of excess money and some of the other.
Yeah.
And just to clarify for you, Joe, because you are new, when we have money in our investment in the state investment pool, that is all of our money, not
Right.
just our investments, because one of the reasons we invest with Trust Indiana is because we can have money transferred through ACH within 24-hour periods with no penalties,
I gotcha.
unlike
So you
putting
can get
things in
access
CD,
if
having so
someone's
much in
got it.
cash and so much in money market and so
Right.
much in CDs.
Okay.
We have it in there and then we transfer as we expend it. So we have a budget for 2023 in the rainy day funds. There's right now no cash dollars. We have to transfer out of the
Right.
investment fund to pay for those expenditures out of that budget.
Okay, thank you.
Great discussion. So Lori's presented a resolution. We need a motion
Mhm.
to move it forward.
So moved.
I hear a motion. Do I hear a second? There's a second. All those in favor
Can
signify.
I
by saying-
ask
Yeah,
another question?
please do.
I was waiting for us to get a motion on the board, because that's when we normally have our questions. It's pretty simple, though. The budget, when we went through that just real quickly, 20% tax caps. Does having this rainy day fund offset some of the possibility of tax caps increasing again on the budget? So,
No, because rainy day does not levy taxes.
right, I know it doesn't levy, but what I'm saying is, do we have that money there in the, so if we don't collect Say it goes
Yes.
to 25%, we
Mhm.
don't collect 25% of our budget. We have rainy day fund to make up the difference.
Correct.
That is correct.
That is correct, yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I
Motion
need your
carries unanimously.
signatures on this official document and Sabrina's secretary twice.
All right, finance report. Lori,
So I'm not gonna go over this much because this is just a summary or synopsis of what we've just looked at. We break down the category, it's in the major categories, and again, 12% of our budget was remaining at the end of the year. $1,849,000 unexpended. Investments,
I'm just gonna let you move through it. It's on the agenda. I don't need to tell you.
under investments, you'll see that for our four funds, library operating fund, library improvement reserve fund, bond interest and redemption fund, and the rainy day fund. Our cumulative total for those four in our state investment pool of trust Indiana is $15,352,100. And you'll see the transactions that occurred in the month of December, withdrawals and the balance of our December tax settlement, which is not needed to pay out bills then for the end of the year, is reinvested. So that's why we have $4,300,000 listed under the operating fund.
You don't need to approve that, do we?
Nope.
I didn't think so. Approval of bills. Sabrina, will you?
Oh.
Well,
No.
but Bob's, are you ready to do it?
You got it right here.
All right.
I have notes and everything.
Did you see my hair? Did you see my hair? I was like.
I was under the impression you were gonna cover, Bob.
I was too. You have in your packet, material looks like that. Which shows the balances. We want to do the invoices, which total about $1.884 million. In addition, there are the payrolls for 3 payrolls in December, totaling about, well, 252 for the first, 250 for the second, and 397 for the third, for an amount just over about $850,000. I think we need a motion to approve these. Does the treasurer make that motion?
There is a motion?
I hereby move.
I think he makes. a
Yes,
motion.
by default. There's a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Here's the
Opposed?
official one to sign.
I
Motion
asked a
carries.
Question about the bills.
Yes.
Too late.
I
You can go
know
ahead.
there was no section in there for, and this is
Yeah,
an
I'm
easy
skipping it.
one. Page 4, Old National Wealth Services, 1.474 million. I assume that's a bond payment.
Yes, our leasing corporation payment.
Thank you. All right. Other business. Future bond legal counsel services, Lori Tomlin.
So at our last meeting, the board requested that we go ahead and put RFQs out to see it within bond legal counsel, and then the next item, which is also our municipal financial advisors. Both of these are necessary if we proceed to seek out bond funding for the project that was approved in the month of November by the board. And that project was the renovation, construction, and potential land purchases for all 9 locations that remain in the master building plan. So we sent out the RFQ for the bond legal counsel to 6 different firms within the state of Indiana and neighboring states that had offices in Indiana that have worked with municipal bonding in the past. And those 6 that were sent out, we received 4 proposals and 1 that declined and 1 just did not respond at all. And you'll see the 4 that sent in their proposals. I have some additional information if anybody has any questions about that. But you can see what their general obligation bond quote was. If there was a referendum included in that, the one that was not included or no price change was Barnes and Thornburg. And Ice Miller gave a range in general, it didn't specifically say with referendum of 27 to 35,000. And then if they included any ancillary, I can never say that word, sorry, expenditures, then I listed those as well. So after we reviewed the quotes and proposals that were sent back, their pricing structure, their experience with library bonding, which is quite different in law than school corporations or other municipal bonding. We gave careful consideration, and the administration would like to recommend the approval of Ice Miller to serve as our bond legal counsel on future potential bond funding opportunities.
Who declined and who didn't respond?
The Craig DeVault did not respond, and I'm sorry, that one wasn't that they didn't decline, but well, in a way they did. Dinsmore, they lost their Indiana licensed attorney. They're based out of Ohio. They had an office in Indiana, previous time that we went out and got quotes for bond legal counsel, and that person has moved on. They're no longer with Dinsmore, so they declined to provide a proposal.
And Krieg DeVault didn't respond at all?
Correct.
Why didn't we look at local counsel? I know Jackson Kelly does this work.
We actually, back in July of 2022, reached out to numerous different law firms and asked if they did municipal bonding. And the ones that we received back are the ones that we sent to this time.
There's a proposal, so is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion,
Second.
there's a second. Motion second, is there any discussion, comments, questions?
Okay, I have a question, Mr. President. Chairman, do you go by chairman or Mr. President? Eric. So does voting on this and approving this, I mean, does that mean that is like an approval, a tacit approval of doing all these projects that we
No.
mentioned?
It means that we have a bond counsel who will then discuss with us what a bond process would look like. And we would have a timeline that we could begin those discussions, and we would know what we were in for if we decided to move forward.
Okay,
And they would help us then draft all those resolutions that would come before you if we went to the city council, all of those things.
so this money doesn't get paid out as a lump sum, it's billed as you proceed or billed as you go along.
Depending on the timeline as well. So when we did the McCullough project as a bond, they actually did not bill us until the very end. And these fees are actually taken out of the bond itself.
Okay,
I think the operative word in this is potential.
okay.
in that
I
first
just,
sentence.
I just asked him.
And you'll get us a document sent out with the recommendations, I mean, with the process before it actually comes to the board, correct?
Yes.
Do you anticipate that in the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month? What are you looking at?
I anticipate us getting on the phone with them as soon as you approve this tomorrow so that we can set a meeting so we can start talking to them.
So we can get a
Because
timeline
even when we have
schedule it.
questions that have come up in recent months, even though Ice Miller is our current bond counsel, they would not consult with us on future ideas because they're not listed as our bond counsel for future opportunities. So they're working with us on the McCullough bond, but if we had questions about potential, and rightfully so, they declined to answer while we had an open RFQ.
Right.
So we can't have any of those conversations until we have approval. So yes.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the the proposal as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
The RFQ for the municipal financial advisor, much the same. It was sent out to 6 municipal financial companies. Actually, I sent inquiries out to 2 additional companies through their, they didn't have contact information listed on their website, so I sent it through their Contact Us. I did not hear back from those 2. As out of the other 6, we received 3 by the actual deadline that was established within the RFQ. And then we had 1 that actually did decline to respond, and we received 1 after the deadline. And they inquired if we would take it into consideration. I said, I cannot do that because it specifically says what the deadline day and time was, and we've received proposals within that established deadline from others.
Who was the late one?
So the late one was Bondry Consulting out of Indianapolis. Oscar Gutierrez is the president of that particular company. And the one that did not respond that actually was emailed out was M Financial. And they're all firms that throughout the state and work with other states as well on municipal bonding.
There's a, go ahead.
I just gonna say, for the most part, they gave not to exceed or a flat amount that they thought it might cost, but in this particular industry, they bill by the hour. And so I listed their blended rate, hourly rates that were given. And then also because we asked them to include the SEC continuing disclosure that would happen after the bonding process took place. Baker Tilly responded that they bill that on an hourly basis again. London Witty Group, LWG, $2,000, and Sycamore said it was inclusive of their proposal. So after considering all 3 pricing structures, again, experience, especially with Indiana Library bond issuances, relationship history, giving each careful consideration, we recommend approval of Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors to continue serving as our municipal financial advisor on future potential bond funding opportunities.
Why are we recommending something that's 40% more than the other 2?
So if you look at Baker Tilly's proposal, they say that it could cost anywhere from 150 hours, or it could take 150 hours to 250 hours to complete this project. They're just saying that would be the maximum amount if it took the full amount of time. The other 2, I can tell you that with London Witty Group, for those who were on the board last year and we discussed our municipal advisor, we started out engaging them for our comprehensive financial plan back in 2012. And they weren't providing the services that they agreed to within the contract. We had to get Steve involved to break that contract. Baker Tilly, which was in Umball, picked up the ball and has been our municipal advisor ever since then. The other Sycamore advisors, they do not have the experience with libraries that the other 2 have, London Witty and Baker Tilly have. They're in Indiana, Illinois. They're a smaller firm and they outsource. So there was other services after bonding that they said would cost additional dollars, but they didn't list like specifically what those were. And then the other issue, not issue, but the challenge would be Baker Tilly is currently our is engaged to be to work on our $4,000 sorry, I'm getting all my words screwed up. General obligation bond, SEC continuing disclosure, as well as our existing soon to be retired leasing corporation bonds. If we have multiple municipal advisors in our Gateway Indiana system and we have them reporting if they are reporting to the SEC, we have multiple municipal advisors reporting to the SEC. I think it could get very confusing, and I want to make sure that we don't miss where we're getting our information. London Witty had stepped in for our former security exchange continuing disclosure work, who fell ill and then unfortunately passed away the following year. And in those 2 years, they failed to disclose certain information that we had to go back and fix when we were issuing the $4 million bond.
So Lori, is what you're saying that when I look at the blended hourly rate, Baker Tilly is the low? And they're giving us a not to exceed $50,000, and the other two are higher hourly rates. But they're saying they think roughly this is what it would cost. So the bottom line to me really is the hourly rate.
You could, yes, you could look at it from the hourly rate perspective.
Yeah, you could, but I've never seen a consultant that didn't go up to the highest amount they said it's going to cost. I mean, if they say it's going to cost up to $50,000, you're going to get a bill for $50,000.
Has that been our experience with Baker Tilly?
No, only when they, so with the comprehensive financial plans, they give us a set amount. Not, it's not a not to exceed amount, it's a set amount that says
That's what it.
this is what it's gonna cost us. The other thing with Baker Tilly, when they gave us a range of hours, if you take the 150 hours times $250 blended rate, you're looking at $37,500. And that, then the additional time would be for all the additional steps. If it goes to petition remonstrance, it goes to referendum, it's going to take additional time and work on their part. So that's where I think they're looking at if it would take up to, but not to exceed the $50,000.
I think what you said about LWG with their past history, like their past performance, they'll probably do it again. And then ruling out Sycamore because of their capabilities, then it basically, for me, just leaves Baker Tilly, so.
If I can say something, how long do we have to wait for London Witty to get past the problem they had 11 years ago? I mean, they've all changed over.
Well, we just had problems the past 2 years with their SEC continuing disclosure on our behalf. They stepped in and took over for Steve Mino Accounting, who again, like I said, he fell ill in 2020. They stepped in and said, would you like for us to do it? We're, trying to help out Steve's clients. He then passed away later that fall, so they came back the next year and said, would you like for us to do it? And I continued to do it. And they were charging the same price as Steve did. So I said, sure, let's go ahead. For $2,000, let's go ahead and do it. I provided all the same information I provided to Steve, never had issues with what Steve Mino had provided and reported to the SEC. But then when Baker Tilly came along to file for us the $4 million bond, they found that there were several things that weren't reported.
It often happens when a consultant comes in, they find problems
It
with
could,
fire
yes.
consultant.
Yeah, it could have been.
I really just think if we're looking at 40% difference in price, London Witty has been one of the top firms. I'm bucking London Witty for a long time. If we've been using Baker Tilly for a long time, it's time to change. I mean, we don't want to have the same person just get into a conference, say, we're always gonna get their business. I'm gonna make a motion, we accept London Witty.
Was there already a motion on the
There's
floor?
motion on
No,
the-
there's not.
No,
Okay. So I hear a motion to take the information provided. I'm going to probably put words in your mouth, Bob. Take the information provided, excluding the proposal from the staff, and award this to LWG.
Right.
As opposed to the recommended Baker Tilly. I
Can we have some discussion question?
think once there's a
you
motion
need
on the floor.
you need a second.
Okay.
Do I hear a second from anybody?
I'm not prepared to make any motions. I want to talk. I had some other comments about Baker Tilly, so before I do anything.
So absent a second.
Why don't you make a second so kids can ask questions?
Okay, I'll make a second then.
Okay, the motion has been seconded. Any discussion,
Yeah,
questions?
my thought was, if you really like Baker Tilly, can we go back to him and say, we'll do this, but we want a 35,000 not to exceed? I mean, why do you have to accept the 50,000 not to exceed? Just say, hey, we like you guys, we want to use you, but let's go to 35,000 not to exceed. I mean, there's no reason why you have to accept the 50,000 not to exceed, right? I mean, to Bob's point.
Isn't that
you know,
kind
they
of
might speak up
problematic
to
with the
that.
motion that's on the floor though, Joe?
Business doing it, it's kind of hard to go back and make the other ones a chance to do also. You have to give everybody a chance to rebid.
So this is not a service contract that you can. I mean, at least on my other position, county council, or as a county commissioner, when I was a commissioner, you were allowed to select service contractors without the
And they
even
go back to
bid
bid
without the bid process.
So
So
just,
I don't know if it's similar here,
It is.
but I would
We're bringing-
suggest,
this
I would
at
just
the request
suggest,
of the board. Normally, it's at the administration's discretion of who we hire for our financial advisors and our bond counsel. Because we run the day-to-day operations and we're the team that's working with them. And that's how the large libraries in the state operate.
I like their 250, I like their 250 rate. I like their 250 rate, but
To clarify what you're asking, Joe, these are only proposals based on the approximation of what the bond potential would be. And at the time, we were looking at potentially 34 million. So whomever we choose, that amount can be negotiated and may change if we,
Correct.
I say we, I mean, the board decides that they want to bond a different amount than 34 million. This was just based on the estimated amount that we could potentially bond. So yes, it could be negotiated to a different amount, and that was the same with any of the proposals that were made.
I
Is there
mean-
any legal reason why we can't go back and say, we'll come back in a month, but let's have another upgraded bid from Baker Tilly? That's from legal counsel.
You what now?
Is there reason, legal reason why we can't go back and say, look, you're 40% higher than anybody else? Is that really what you want to bid?
It's not a bid. It's
It's
just
not a
request
bid.
for quotes, an
Is that-
RFQ.
Is that really what you want to quote?
We can negotiate with anyone.
Okay,
We didn't have to go to RFQ. We could hire whoever we want for professional services.
then let's put it aside and come back in a month once you talk to them again.
Can I ask one question? Because you called out, and I think you said this in your presentation under the 50,000 NTE for Baker Tilly. None of the others gave us a not to exceed. They gave us a, here's our best guess.
Yes, correct.
So I do think that is a
they asked
different.
for.
Well, I don't know. I didn't do the negotiation, but I think they would have called that out, that you had one that actually gave us a not to exceed number. And then the rest of them said, here's our best guess.
Well,
So, and I'm just pointing that out because that. they
the
did-
good thing
I did
about the
clarify
not
here.
to exceed though, if you put in the, say 35,000 not to exceed. The hourly rate, if we get halfway along the line and they say, look, because of this or that, it looks like we may need to go through that, or that gives us a chance to say, well, we had not to exceed, so we may, we need to rethink things or whatever.
Well, I think the other thing, and just to throw it out there, is that, and I'm not pro or con on the motion is in and of itself, but to Lori's point, the not to exceed numbers and the rates and everything were factored on the largest possible bond that could be issued right now. And I don't think anybody right now has even contemplated doing that.
Right.
I mean, that there's discussion of what that might look like, what the capabilities are. We've not even had those discussions yet. So this, for lack of better words, in my opinion, this is a worst case scenario. When it comes to bonding, or best case, depending on your perspective, but
I can't speak to the quality of any of these people. This is like a foreign language to me, whether you say Baker Tilly or Sycamore or by whomever, it's like, I have no clue. I'm only basing upon what you guys are recommending. But I'd feel comfortable being with Baker Tilly if you went back and talked to them, say, hey, we'd like to reduce or not to exceed number.
So I think if you did that, you have to give the other two a chance of saying,
Or-
our not to exceed number.
Yeah, however you guys want to handle that.
But you have different quotes, they have different terms. This one says not to exceed 50. They're just saying 35 is the best guess, but we can say 40 is a not to exceed number. I mean, we don't have enough information.
But if we do that, and Steve, this is not a contractual agreement.
We have-
This is just an estimate of services and an estimate, correct? There's
Correct.
nothing legal. If they say not to exceed, there's nothing legal that we could hold any of these to. Am I correct about that?
Yes.
We're going to issue in a contract of any kind?
We will, but
We
We
will.
will, but we don't have that.
we're not
We don't
there
have the
yet.
contract review, yeah.
We're not there yet.
This
Yeah,
is just,
and I think this is an important exercise, and the board giving some oversight and guidance to the direction we want the administration to go. Based on what information they've given us so far and provided, but it's not the execution of a contract. It's not it is guidance, if nothing else, in my opinion. Because I think the wording in here is very careful based on other conversations, because we specifically said, we don't want to have agreements or directives that are for infinity, so it's limited to a year. It is very carefully put in there for potential, because we've not agreed to doing anything. It's just to give them the latitude to move and start doing the research.
Mr. Chair, I call for the motion.
I think the guidance from me, what I would say is, don't do 40% more than the other ones unless they're really, really, really good. But one discussion we've had so far, I'll withdraw my motion.
I'll withdraw my second, yeah.
And so the motion has been withdrawn. Do I hear a motion for this proposal?
I move that we accept the proposal submitted.
There's a
Recommend.
motion on, or there's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Is it with the same caveat that we've been discussing, that there's gonna go back and have some discussion or with them, or is it with the 50,000 NTEs?
Right now, it's as the proposed motion, as it is written here.
So
So
do I
it
hear a
needs
second?
and
No,
then
that's a
discussion.
second. So there's a second. So,
Okay.
so I'm not gonna, I'm not an expert in it, but let me answer the way my brain's looking at this. And that is, we're providing guidance to them that we want them to work with them. We're not telling them that you can't go through. And in fact, I would expect them to negotiate the best possible deal on behalf of the library and the taxpayers of Vanderburgh County. I think this says, this is kind of what the initial discussion looked like. This is why we're giving them some direction. We want you to go back to Baker and Tilly, work with them when there's a need to work with them, but do that with our best interests in mind. And I would expect that when it comes time for a contract or anything like that, we're gonna ask very, very tough questions. How did that conversation go? What were the questions were asked? What were the responses? Because we could change our mind tomorrow and say, well, we're not gonna work with Baker Tilly now. But we needed to give them some guidance. I think the board felt like we needed to give the staff some guidance so they can keep moving forward and not sit stagnant. Just, that's how I'm looking at it.
And the proposal that is in this is not saying we are selecting Baker Tilly at $250 blended hourly rate of not to exceed 50,000. All we're proposing is that we continue using them to serve as our municipal financial advisors. These factors just help us in trying to make that decision then to bring forward to you.
So
Yes,
there's-
this will not, a contract of this amount will not come out of this.
Okay. So now there's a motion, a second. Any additional discussion?
I'm simply gonna say, and we all know I haven't been on here a whole year. But I appreciate and have been on numerous boards. I haven't been on the billion-dollar boards and all this other stuff, but I do know. When I can talk to people who can generate information for us to discuss. And make that simple enough for even me to understand. I appreciate and anticipate and appreciate the fact that you are in a position where you have some expertise on what it is, otherwise you wouldn't present it. And so I have to publicly say, I appreciate that. I'm not gonna sit here and haggle and try to base my minimal amount of information on what you are saying and compare it. So I am saying, I appreciate what you do. In my estimation, you are in a position because you have some expertise in working with this. You are bringing us information for us to discuss. I appreciate it. I appreciate what you do. It's no small feat. End of story. Thank you.
There's a
Mr. President,
motion, a
Mr.
second on the,
Well, Ms. President, I do have something to say as well.
Okay.
Since you brought that up, Ms. Hop, before I've told Lori we need to clone her. Because, I could say this to the end of the meeting, but we're discussing it. It's amazing. She's done it year over year, over year, over year, and we've not had any bad audits. We've not had any, I was just up in Indianapolis. They got, board members quitting left and right on the library board. So she is phenomenal. And so I listened to her and again, I've been on the board for years, but still it's a lot to comprehend. And she does a great job of, I guess, explaining it. And there's a level of trust on the board that I've experienced over the year. I just want to say that it could be out of order, but I just want to say it before we go to the vote. So I'm confident in moving on with the motion.
any other comments? Questions? All those in favor, as the motion was made, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Announcements, or is there anything else?
Yeah, well, you could take it under other business or announcements. I just wanted to share an opportunity that just came up to the EVPL and requires board input, decisions and guidance. We had a representative contact us from Verizon who expressed that there were a few sites reviewed downtown Evansville to put a temporary Verizon tower on our green space across the street. They selected ours above some of the others that they were considering. They're excited to move forward quickly, but I let them know that when you deal with local governments, that's not always possible. But I wanted to bring to you their proposal, what they would like to do, but then also go through what we as a board and organization of a local government have to do. They would like to put a temporary tower on our green space across the street for approximately a year. Is that correct? And to the tune of $4,000. I said, time out. First of all, if we lease any kind of space or property, then we have to follow Indiana code. And that Indiana code is 36-1-11-10. Lease of property and the procedures to follow. The section 10 or chapter 10 of that code says that unless we determine and prove that there is a more immediate need, we have to go out and get the property appraised and put it out to bid in the manner prescribed in section 4 of this particular chapter. If we deem that there is a need to the disposing agent or the leasing agent makes a written document determination, which includes the disposing agent's reasons that the use of section 10 of this chapter is not feasible, meaning we don't have the ability to go out and get the appraisals in the time manner required, then we have to submit or issue an RFP. What that means is the board would have to decide today for it to work with Verizon's time frame. The board would have to decide today that they would like to pursue that, where we are submitting or issuing an RFP to the public at large. It means anybody can submit a proposal for the green space across the street, and then set a square footage price tag on that. We could get that RFP out with Aaron and Steve's help within probably a week's time and receive it back in time then for you at the February board meeting to determine if you want to accept Verizon's proposal. This is one possibility. The other possibility is if you don't want to move that quickly on it and you'd rather it be looked at, then they'll go to the next site on their selection list.
4,000 per month or 4,000?
A year
You-
for the year that they wanted to do it.
Doesn't really seem like it's worth it, does it?
There's a lot of hoops we have to jump through to
Correct.
get to that point. And they were wanting to just come in and do it.
Yes, you are correct.
Let me ask a question, and I could find out real quickly with what I do, what is a typical pay rate for, this is a cell tower, you're saying, or what kind of tower is? it?
Yes, Verizon cell tower.
Yeah, temporary. I could probably find that out with just a little time to research it at my office, but what is considered, do you have an appraised value in the land?
Not
Not
the
the current.
green space, no.
Okay, but you know what you paid for it, right?
Yes,
Okay. Because typically a land lease is based upon the value of the, if you bought or sold that land.
mhm.
So I don't know what you paid for it, 100,000, 50,000, it's hard to say. I don't know.
I could go back and look. It was
Years ago.
It was years ago. Well, you could then have. some kind of
2013. 10 years ago.
I guess bottom line is, I could probably tell you what the value is with comps from comparable pricing
Sure.
from other deals. that I've worked on. Just not on this, shorter notice, but I could find that information out.
Lori, would there be like, any legal fees or other fees that would be in this? Like, so $4,000 for the year, but we're gonna have some fees and some other
Staff time.
Yes.
expenses.
Staff
for
time, legal fees
doing
for
this.
Steve to review.
I tend to agree with what Bob's saying. I mean, it doesn't look like it's, really feasible to, especially with their timeline that they're proposing.
Yeah, and he wanted to go ahead and start working on an agreement and getting things put together. I said, it comes from us to you, not you to us. That's just how it works in this particular case, sorry. So we could propose that even if Joe could get that information quickly, if we put it out there in an RFP, we wanted so many dollars per, square foot. And they're like, whoa, that's not what we want to pay. Then we've just expended all that time and fees with Steve and Aaron and,
Skills
Cost
time and
of
everyone else, correct.
advertising.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
I would suggest that there's no motion on the floor. There is no business to be had on our agenda. That absent a specific motion from the board for the need to act quickly, that we let this opportunity pass by.
And yeah, and that's what I just wanted to give you the
Make
opportunity.
sure. Yep.
So no action would be that action.
Okay,
Correct.
I will let them know tomorrow.
While we're talking about this has come to my mind several times in the past year that I've driven by. Do we have any sort of plan, even in general, for what to do with that land? I mean, sitting out there is in the middle of downtown, is doing nothing, basically. Do we have any idea or any committee looking at it or?
We've looked at trying to do things in the past, but I'd like to, with the board's permission, eventually, it's not part of our current facilities plan. We did not really include the annex or that green space in that plan, but there has been historical talk to use that land for something else that's possible, to sell that land and use it for part of the facilities projects coming up. They've talked civic park type of thing, amphitheater for
There was a-
programming out there.
There was a proposal
Yeah.
back in 2014.
Yeah,
There was a group that looked at it. It spilled, I believe, into a little bit of 2015, 2016. We pursued, at that time, it was when the rise of all the farmers markets were happening.
Mhm.
And so it was a multi-use space that could be used both for programming, but also for a farmer's market if it wanted to be. Then in a lot of different discussions, it kind of just came to be that maybe that wasn't the best use, and so it kind of has died. It was not a high priority within the facilities plan when we looked at that space. We can always look at it, but we currently,
Can we ask staff because you have lots to do, I
Yeah.
know, but can you come back to us in 3 to 6 months with some general idea? What can you do with it?
Sure.
Because if nothing else, it's good for the downtown to do something with it, not just have it being
I
grass.
agree, and we'd like to talk more with our partners downtown, both.
technically, it is the
Yeah.
annex as a whole listed as a project that we could pursue. And
Right.
that, once you named MKM as that continued architect, we would have those further discussions on the annex. And then, of
Right.
course, what you do with the annex is gonna affect the green space as it's in
Correct.
between the two. So that was sort of part of that plan down the road to discuss it and to get that, but we can certainly
Right.
speed up those conversations.
But as we were going through as that team, that's the plan furthest down the road because it has the least public impact as it stands right now.
Correct.
I hear nothing on the floors.
Oh, no, just a request that get back to us someday.
Yes, we will. We'll. And if you hear suggestions, please let us know.
You have suggestions.
All right. Any other announcements?
Just a couple quick ones from me. Just wanted, again, we had a great year here at EVPL this past year. Staff has done a tremendous job. If you look at our programming numbers, you see that they are up significantly and they've done some exciting things. We've had a lot of staff, or I should say several staff members that are representing EVPL on national committees. One of our teen librarians, Kelly McDaniels, on the ULC Summer Learning Task Force. I'm on the ULC Education Task Force and the Small Business Entrepreneurial Task Force. Heather's on, I always get this title wrong, Heather.
Well, it's kind of by the wayside, so it's fine.
Okay,
Just keep-
because we're wrapping that up now. Okay, that's wrapped up. But she spent a whole year and a half working on that task force. And I just wanted to commend them for sharing their knowledge and leadership, not only here within the state, because we've had people present at conferences and workshops across the state, including Heather, who presented most recently at the Indiana Library Federation Annual Conference and did 2 sessions, I believe, that were very well received. So we have a lot of talented staff here that do a tremendous job. And I also just want to remind the board, and in case you're interested, Meet Your Legislator is this Saturday, starting at 9:15.
Thank you. Any other announcements?
I just remind everybody not to pack up too soon because we have the annual Library Board of Finance meeting immediately following this one. It'll take a whole 5 minutes, I promise.
Any other good news?
I tried, Eric. I tried.
Okay. Hearing none, I'll call a motion for adjournment. I'll move. Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned. I will turn it over to,
Grabbing the invisible gavel back, and I would like to call to order this meeting at the Library Board of Finance for 2023. First order of business is election of officers. For the Board of Finance, we need a president and a secretary, and typically our president and secretary serving are the president and secretary of the Board of Trustees. So do I have a motion for a motion for nominations for president and secretary for the Finance Committee or Finance Board?
I move the board president and secretary become the finance board president and secretary.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of appointing Eric Williams as president